July 2008, Apple's mobile me service has just launched. Millions of users are coming in, and mail will not load. Calendars are not syncing. Um, and tech blogs are roasting Apple. So, what's happening? These three letters help Apple and Steve Jobs figure out who's responsible, what's wrong, and how to fix it. And let's get into that. So, what's happening? We're going to figure out what DRI, these three letters, mean, how it helped Steve Jobs and Apple figure out what was going wrong with this launch, figure out the person responsible, who apparently did not have a job after this, and then how the process went. So, yeah, let's get into that. So, DRI is not a process, it's not a terminology, it's not corporate theater. It is just a simple way of having a directly responsible individual. It can be for a simple bug, a simple task. It could be for um, a big feature that the company's launching, right? It could be for anything, but right, any sort of a problem or project that a company is working on, there's always a DRI. So a person that you can point to and be like, this is the person responsible for this, right? Um, I've had a friend, who worked at Stripe also say that they had it for offsites, where people go on vacation for a year. Like, they'll book a cottage and a bunch of people show up and, people are, the only things to do there are like planning tickets, air travel, and Airbnb and those sort of things. Companies like Stripe even have a DRI person for that, right? So in case someone's missing their flight, who's responsible? This person, right? And that doesn't mean that person's doing all the work. It just means that person is responsible for making sure there's no problem for the end user. So in the case of an offsite, the end user might be internal employees who are flying over to a cottage and, hey, I've missed my flight. What do I do? So helping them solve that problem. So yeah, doesn't mean they're doing the work, but they are the ones responsible for it, right? So almost like a mini CEO of a product, of a feature, or in this case, an offsite. And that also includes vacationing, for example, right? So something people often ask is, well, if there's like a directly responsible individual and there's a big launch coming up, who's responsible if I'm on vacation or I'm, not in the office anymore? The answer to that is that's part of the scope of being a DRI. You find someone within your team or a neighboring team to cover for you, right? Great example is I've heard from a colleague or ex colleague that there's a meeting or a standardization meeting with 10 different teams, and let's say your product manager that was leading it, and you can't make that meeting anymore. Now, as a DRI, it's your job to find someone who is able to continue that, and in this case, it might be an engineering manager lead, or an engineering manager colleague, or someone senior that can cover for you, and so you can fill them in into what they say, what they don't need to say, what they need to ask, and clarify. So in a way, the work keeps going on and keeps continuing, right? And I think it's interesting. I have a lot of problems with sometimes like work culture, which is very you know um, not toxic, but I do have problems with work culture, which is just breeds work. And there's nothing that you cannot talk about that's not work. People that I don't really get along with. I like people with a little bit of personality. Um, but having said that, um, it does breed a culture of ownership, right? It breeds a culture of I own something or this person owns something, and that eventually will lead to a broader sense of ownership within the company. Right? I'm sure if people have experience with product management, sometimes you work with engineers or designers who sometimes aren't necessarily as motivated to go the extra mile. And I think a product manager sometimes feels a little left alone, or feels like, hey, like help me out a little bit here, right? I just shouldn't need to spell every single thing out. And I think in instances like that, having a DRI is great, right? Like, hey, I'm building a technical feature or some sort of feature. Like an engineering manager, if that's not there or he's on vacation, another engineer is now the DRI for that process, right? So it solves the problem that there's no committees, maybe it's their job. It's one person, one outcome expected, right? And you see this very obviously with the Apple example, right? Steve Jobs called a mobile me team in and asked two questions, right? It's like, what is it supposed to do? And he said, why does it not do that? I'm going to be a little polite, but apparently the words used were a little bit more non-friendlier than that. And rumors say that person who was the DRI for that project was fired, and then a replacement person came in. Okay, and now I have just realized it is raining a little bit, so this video might need to be cut short. Let's catch up a little bit later. See ya.